about my parents wasn't quite right. I tried my best to try and forget about this gut feeling and carry on with my life. My mum and dad gave me an amazing childhood. They were always there to comfort me, support me, and encourage me. There was no doubt that they loved me, and I loved them. As I grew older, I began to notice the differences between my parents and my friends' parents. They never kissed or held hands, and I'd never seen them hug, not once. Regardless of my suspicions, I carried on as normal and never said a word about this to them. I told myself that some couples just weren't as romantic as others, but this didn't mean anything. My worst nightmares came true when my best friend, Greg, purposefully started trying to avoid me. He switched desks in English so he didn't have to sit by me. He stopped hanging out with me at lunch, and on several occasions I saw him abruptly change direction in the corridors when he saw me. I was so down about why Greg was acting like this that I got to school early and stood in front of his locker. He needed his books, so he had no choice but to acknowledge me. "Greg, why are you avoiding me? Have I done something to upset you?" I asked him. At first, he tried to ignore my questions, but in the end, he came clean. "Tom, you've done nothing to upset me. I know something about your dad, and I don't know how to tell you. I managed to get into the gay club in town, and your dad was there. I saw him kissing another man." I started to laugh. I didn't understand why Greg had made this up. I'd supported him when he came out as gay to everyone, so why was he saying this about my dad? As I stormed off up the corridor, I realised that Greg wouldn't just make something like that up. I was so confused that I decided to skip school. I couldn't concentrate. I needed to be alone, to think. Mum and Dad were at work, so the house would be empty. At least, that's what I thought. But then I saw my mum's car in the driveway. I walked into my house, all set on telling Mum I felt ill, and I found my mum curled up on the couch with her best friend Lydia. They instantly pulled apart when they saw me and began to act really awkwardly, as if they were trying to hide something. I demanded to know what was going on, and Mum burst into tears and told me that it was time that I knew the truth. Mum called Dad and got him to come home from work early, and then she asked Lydia to leave. Dad arrived and we all sat around the kitchen table. Then my parents told me the shocking truth. It turns out that my mum was a lesbian who was in love with Lydia, and that Dad knew all about it. Then Dad told me that he was gay, and Mum knew all about this too. I was so shocked. They'd been together for my whole life. That was 17 years, so why the lie? I got really angry and shouted at them both. I didn't understand why they had lied to me. That's when my dad told me that there was more I needed to know. Mum started crying and begged him not to tell me, but he said that it was about time I knew the whole truth. I had no idea what was going on. I just found out that they were both gay and had been lying to me about it for years. What else could they possibly be hiding from me? "Son, it's important that you remember that we both love you very much. We both wanted to be parents so badly that we decided to raise you together. Tom, you're adopted," Dad told me. I stared at him in shock. I felt like my whole life had been one big lie. My parents, grandparents, aunts, uncles, and so on weren't really related to me at all. I had no idea who I was. Turns out my mum adopted me first. She was friends with my dad, and they both decided that they'd say they were a couple and raise me together. I was so mad that I screamed at them, threw stuff around, and then couldn't stop crying. It was truly awful. I felt so low. I packed a bag and walked out of the house. My mum was crying and begged me to stay, but I left anyway. I couldn't go to my grandparents' or other relatives' houses, so I ended up going round to Greg's. I told him what had happened, and he was super supportive. He cleared it with his parents and said that I could stay at his for a while. It's been 2 weeks since I found out the truth, and I haven't spoken to my parents since. They've sent me a bunch of texts, emails, and left me some emotional voicemails, but I haven't responded to any. I was so mad at them for lying to me, but the truth is that I'm miserable without them. They raised me, loved me, and supported me. The truth is that regardless of what they did, I know that they're good people and I love them. I don't know what to do. I know I can't stay at Greg's forever, but I don't know if I'm ready to forgive my parents just yet. Please, comment with what you think